Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo, alongside you guys. Just a quickie kind of one that we got going on. There's been so many fixtures, so we're trying to cover everything, review everything, preview everything as fast as we can in the most efficient way that makes sense. So again, if you guys did not check out the latest episode, be sure to go and do that. That was the review with Empoli. We also did a post-match live review of the match against Sassuolo, where Milan dominated 6-1. So you guys can go under the live tab on the channel to go and check that one out. They're both uploaded there. And again, like, subscribe, and comment on the video here. And now, Santangelo, we are embarking on another match. And this one is against Atalanta in Bergamo, after Atalanta had just come off a victory on Monday against Roma in a 2-0. I wouldn't say utterly dominant performance from them, but it was just another professional win where I think that, was a little bit of back and forth. Roma had some slim chances. If you had the opportunity to watch this goes for anybody. This is why Atalanta, I think, after the win or just winning Europa League, has a new confidence level about winning games like this in a professional manner, regardless of Roma's form. Roma were still home. They still have Ranieri. They have a squad that could still grind out a result. Zaniolo ends up getting the winner there. They subbed off Retegui fairly early in this one as well, so he's pretty rested. Lookman, Matt, had probably his worst performance of the season. They still end up winning by a couple of goals. That's how much of a juggernaut they've been. They've scored the most goals in Serie A. They're going to be hosting this one. This is going to be really difficult for Milan. I understand there are those people who sit around and Gino from the MLM podcast with Max and Gino was making a good point about the Juventus match and how if you're the type of person that has Scudetto aspirations, and I know many of us don't believe that they're going to do that, the Juventus result was terrible, considering who they were missing, how Milan were at home, all those things. Now, when you head into a fixture like Atalanta, where they are in the standings, they're playing incredibly well, and Milan are kind of, there's Jekyll and Hyde form, but recently good form. What kind of result is a positive one for Milan here? Is a draw good enough, in your opinion? Are you satisfied with that sort of result?
So I am actually, because I think there's a different feeling around this match than there was the Juventus game, which you just mentioned, right? And we discussed that in our preview episode, and then obviously our recap of that. And I apologize, guys, I'm super congested right now, so if I sound very sick, I am. So we're trying to get this episode done for you guys to give you guys the content ahead of the match tomorrow. So just bear with me. But yeah, I think given how great Atalanta have been playing, really through much of the season. I mean, a minor, if that, speed bumps. But I mean, even in the Champions League, they've putting in really good performances in the league, as you mentioned, and of course, Coppa Italia. Right, this is a team that's well drilled. Yeah. Gasparini has them playing at a super high level, and he's been doing such a fantastic job since he's become the coach in 2016. Right, I think they've gotten 6 of 8 of the years he's been in charge. They've gotten a European spot, which again, on their budget, their restrictions, the fact that they're always selling players is very impressive. So
historically too.
It's a testament to the job that he's done as a coach and why he's getting widespread praise, from Pep and the like. But in a match like this, I think that, Atalanta, to my knowledge, don't have many like notable injuries or absences. I don't know if you could pull that up, but they seem pretty healthy and they seem ready to go for this match. And obviously they're hosting Milan, a team that, they've had pretty good success against, right? And when you look at this Milan team, right, coming into this match, they're playing well as far as like the collective performances. Some of their key guys are playing at a better level. Like Rafa seems to be playing better. Your Tijani and Fofana, like a lot of their main guys are playing at a pretty high level. Bar maybe Teo. I think we still want a little bit more from him. Yeah. So I think when you kind of put 2 and 2 together here, I think that a draw for Milan with a good defensive effort. Now, what a good defensive effort looks like is probably the question that many are going to ask me, right? And ask you. And I would say avoiding the catastrophic, the rudimentary and elementary mistakes is what I would deem as a success, right? If this match looks 1-1 and Milan play tight, They look good defensively. Gabia, Malik Chow, which seems to be the pairing according to
Mhm.
Fonseca and multiple other reports. And Milan get a goal and they still create the chances like they have been creating, right, which has been a positive, then I think that's a pretty good result, right? Going into Bergamo, you get a draw against a team that, in my view, is a title contender. If they can keep this up, I don't see any reason to believe they're going to fall off. I know they typically have a little bit of a regression, somewhere around maybe like the midway point of the season where they concede a lot of goals and maybe the abundance of fixtures tends to wane on them, right? But more or less
Mhm.
this is a team I think is going to stick around, and for this match, again, a draw wouldn't be the worst result. I think it's a much different conversation to have this match versus the Juventus match for the reason that you just mentioned.
Funnily enough, you're talking about absences, so I want to go like pull some of them up. Very crazy that Scalvini already back. This has been known anyways, but just to bring up the injuries, Quadrado picked up a little knock. I assume, or not assume, or just have seen Scamacca not going to be available as well for this one. Probably the biggest absence of all, and he was not there in the match against Roma, is Gasparini himself. He's not going to be on the touchline. He's been suspended, so he'll be suspended for this one. Again, proving it against Roma, beating them that way without him. Listen, what makes Gasp so great as a manager is that he doesn't need to be on the sideline and the touchline for this, because that's how strong and integrated his system is into that club, and
His
his
claws are
fingerprints are
handprinted all over this
everywhere.
team. Yeah.
It's legitimately like a college program in the United States, but at the professional level. He runs everything. He is that entire club. If he left tomorrow, like, who knows what would happen? I'm sure there's smart people in charge over there. They've done a good job of changing directors and players over the years, but one of the main constants has been Gasparini. So again, we'll see what happens with Milan. You mentioned a little bit with the starting 11s for this. Manana's back in. Loftus-Cheek, it's not too big of an issue for him, is what Fonseca said today in his press conference regarding this match. And again, it really does kind of seem like an Emerson Royale, Chao Gabia, and Teo Hernandez at the back. As far as the other positions go, I think you could lock in Pulisic, Rafael Leao. The two other positions that I have a toss-up opinion about are what happens at right wing and what happens at the striker position. History, not history, but I guess recent, fixtures, results, ties against the bigger games and the bigger competitions, Matt, is that
Yeah.
Alvaro Morata starts in those games, and it's not Tammy Abraham. One would like to believe that Tammy Abraham might have a bigger leash, like coming off the bench, because of his good form as of late. But another side of me thinks Morata did not play against Sassuolo, and rightfully so. He's been rested since that fixture against Empoli. It feels like Morata would get that start there. Now, the bigger of questions is obviously this, and I think it can go a couple different ways, right? And what we have seen: Musa getting a start, Chukwueze getting a start, or Loftus-Cheek getting a start. And these all have to do with the right wing, the number 10, or, a different formation if Musa is in there. I know people would like to think that they lined up in a 4-2-3-1 where Musa's like that right winger, but he is. And it was really funny, and I forgot to bring it up, by the way, Matt. And it's why he made the comments preseason about him and liked him so much was Fonseca and Salamakers. The way Musa plays right wing, right, if you want to consider him playing that position, is eerily similar to what Alexis Salamakers is. Ball carrying, actually pretty solid, respectable. Decision making and a final third product, very lackluster, leaves a lot to be desired. But the work rate is unquestioned, brings a lot more balance on that side, even though you are giving up somewhat offensively. Now for Fonseca, it's sort of like, where do you think he leans here? I don't think Chukwueze plays in this one. I think they play Red Stark or Venezuela in the Champions League midweek. I think Chukwueze has a better chance playing in that one. He's done well in European football. He's in pretty good form. And Atalanta is a little bit of a different matchup, even though they are sort of more of that modern European team now with their pressing and attacking. But still, it's still Italy. For me, I think Musa is going to start. I think that he tries to put back in Pulisic because this is sort of what he's done in the big games to try and get results. Uh, I think that's sort of the trend right now that we're seeing is like he did against Sassuolo, disagree or not with me, put your best forward, put in the team that gives you the best chance to win, and then you go from there. If adjustments need to be made on who needs to slot into the number 10, if Chukwueze comes on, or even Morata slots into the 10, they bring on Tammy. I think that's the sort of thing that happens. My prediction, and this is not, what's been said or been proven right now, off of the decisions Fonseca has made, I think it goes Magnan, Royale, Gabia, Shaw, Teo, Fofana, Reinders, Musa, Pulisic, Leao, and Morata. I think that's what he ends up going with, and we'll see if that works. Because they are a different matchup than what we've seen with Juventus and Real Madrid. So, what are your kind of thoughts and gauges on those two sort of positions, the striker and the right wing?
Also, Luca Bianchin of Gazzetta, he's probably one of the more prominent Milan reporters out of Italy. He just tweeted out a little while ago that this is kind of a loose translation of his words, saying that Milan now has a starting lineup and is preparing to use it for the match against Atalanta. It is the Milan Empoli team, right? So if you guys are familiar with that match and obviously the way that Fonseca approached it, Gabia Malakchau is the center defense, which you just mentioned as your prediction. Fofana, Reinders, no, surprises there. And Musa is a typical winger. And Fonseca did mention Musa in his presser, right? Formerly in the attacking midfield with Pulisic and Leao. So I think that what we
Too
just
bad I
said.
missed that tweet. I could have saved all that breath.
No, that's fine because I'm glad I'm glad I actually brought it up because it now kind of mends the two, right? The two ideas and thoughts or approaches to the match. But I think that the way that Fonseca is valuing Musa is so
Yeah.
crucial in a match like this because it's going to be very end to end. It's going to be high octane football from Atalanta, and it's going to require workers, right? And we touched upon this in our recent episodes, right? The preview of the Sassuolo game and obviously the post-match live that we did. So you guys can go check that out as well because there's some evergreen content on the way we sort of describe Musa and Tijani and Fofana and how those three have coexisted in some of the matches that they've played together. And I think that that's really what Fonseca's approach is, right? And I think there's credit to Fonseca, and this is something that we did highlight many times throughout the season so far, right? Is that for all the criticism that Fonseca has garnered, some rightful, some wrongful, in my opinion, the fact that he hasn't been so rigid and stuck in his ways, where like if he sees that, hey, Gabia Malakchau is giving me something that I haven't had, I'm going with those players. Those are the ones that are in good form. Those are the ones that have shown me something. I'm going to run at those two as my center defense. And same thing with Musa, right? Where he gave Musa that opportunity against Real Madrid. And since then, you can see how Fonseca has liked utilizing Musa and his importance within this Milan team when he has played. So I think that the lineup that you just mentioned, which I would piggyback off and say is probably the projected one that I would put out, is a good one. I mean, I think that you have players off the bench that can give you something different. If you want to pull Musa back into a midfield three and you want to maybe put up a winger or vice versa, or take off a midfielder or whatever and kind of
It's
finagle
just
around it, you
so
could.
many fixtures. It's a real difficult thing to sort of balance these minutes,
Of
right?
course,
Like
of course. But I
it's
think that
and,
Musa
and it's
hasn't
not. I'm
gotten
not
too many
disagreeing.
minutes. Musa hasn't played the amount of minutes that some of these
I
other
know,
players, like
but
Fofana
like
or
it's
Tijani.
like you're using your third midfielder, and we don't have midfield depth. And
Yeah,
again, I'm not saying Fonseca shouldn't do this, but it's worrisome because of like Kush brings this up in his videos, and many other people do on Fofana and the amount that he plays. So like if you're using Fofana and Reinders here again, and then Musa, which is totally fine. I'm always about like going in for these 3 points and getting as many as you can, but like you're also quickly turning around to the Champions League yet again. And, Bennacer is just coming back to training. That's something we'll talk about in a second. Ziroli has been injured as well, so you can't really bring in some of these guys. And that was kind of the rather unfortunate part against Sassuolo. And with Loftus-Cheek's knock as well, you couldn't really place him in there. And maybe he does get on the bench tomorrow, possibly an option off of it. Yeah, I think Milan need to maximize what they're doing when they're deploying these players.
But
For me,
this Martino, this isn't the game to rest.
I'm not asking them
Fofana.
to rest. I'm just saying if there is something you have to worry about long term, it's that. Like it could catch up to them. We've been very great so far,
It
knock on
could,
wood,
it could.
with injuries. It's just sometimes like when we're trying to balance this too, right? Because we go in to this match and then we have Crvena Sweats almost immediately after that. We'll see what the status is of Bennacer, but you're also quickly turning around again on Sunday to Genoa. So like these fixtures are really crucial. I think Fonseca's done a very good job of balancing and trying to rest players at a certain time. I also just wonder how quick the hook is with like a Musa or like even a Fofana, for example, and like who gets the
I think
rest first.
I think
That's
Fofana is him and Tijani are almost like irreplaceable pieces in this team right now. And
for
I don't
sure.
necessarily think that they should be given the rest at this point in time. And I'm not saying, they haven't been worked very hard
No,
because
no,
they
no. Of
have.
course, I know what you're
But I
saying.
think that ultimately, I think that really comes down to, what many have been saying is, how this squad was built in the summer was not really a finished product, right? For the reason that we were just mentioning, right?
Yeah.
Because, on paper, you might say, oh, we have Bennacer, we have Ruben Loftus-Cheek, with Fofana, Reinders, we got 4 or 5 midfielders, we're fine. But Bennacer is gone. You have the abundance of fixtures now, and quickly your depth can shrink, right? So I think that this is a moment for Fonseca to, again, he's going to have that conversation with Fofana. He's going to have the conversation with many of
Mm.
his players. I think it wouldn't surprise me that, given some of Fonseca's more recent comments regarding Fofana, saying like he's acknowledged that he's played a lot, and he's acknowledged probably the fact that people are asking questions about, are you concerned about the amount of minutes? And he's been playing a lot of games and all those sorts of things. But I think my pushback on that would be, well, wouldn't the recent
Because
results
if
that
he
we've
doesn't
seen,
play him, then they drop points. He gets shit for it.
right? So wouldn't my suggestion be fair in saying that, wouldn't the game in the Champions League be a not good opportunity for Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Reinders in a double pivot? It's not ideal, but Ruben
Well,
Loftus-Cheek has
yeah, yeah.
played
I think
there.
he has to make a decision like that soon. And like out of these two fixtures, which we'll get into the UCL match,
Yeah.
I would tend to agree with you. That you would be something that you can get away with. Again, Fofana did only have 45 minutes against Sassuolo, but like it's not just that. And this is just for like
But it's
any
also
comment
too,
to
Martino,
get. Yeah.
the stress and strain of those minutes,
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah, yeah.
Like
He didn't have
that
to go
game
too
was
crazy,
that game
thankfully.
was like, we were largely
Yeah.
we weren't really
Like
fussed.
they
We
call
weren't
them in
really
baseball, there's high leverage innings, high
right,
leverage
right. Like
outs,
high
where
leverage innings where it's like
you're
there's an
like
inning
exerting
where
more energy than you
correct.
would against another side just
So
to
that
try
game
and
against Empoli, that game against Sassuolo, like those games weren't really like matches where it was like a crucial match, to the point where, wow, these guys, like, you could see Fofana is like he's exhausted, he's strained, right? Which again, a testament to the preparation, because Fonseca seems to have these guys in really good physical fitness, right? Maybe where he's fallen short with his selections in certain games and his preparation and all those
they,
sorts of
they
things, as
haven't
far as how to
come
go out teams
close to the
tactically.
injury
I
issues.
think from a I think from a fitness standpoint, like, are there any players that I know early on Fofana he looked like noticeably like a little slow, little step or two.
But again, he wasn't even training with
But
his
that's what I'm
with
saying. Like,
Monaco.
that was what I was pretty much going to say, was like that was when he just joined. He's been on the shelf, and then he joined, and he
Yeah.
had to get that quick ramp up, right? But next to that, like, this team looks very well fit, prepared for these matches. Where we fall short is obviously the individual errors and maybe tactically with Fonseca. So I think we do have to give him credit there, right? And we've talked about this many times. This is a podcast that prides itself on like
Fairness.
giving that fair due. We're pro Milan. We're not anti Fonseca. We're not pro Fonseca. We're not anti Pioli or pro Pioli. We're pro Milan. And if that means that we give
Mm-hmm.
credit to a coach for doing the right thing, we will.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, just putting a bow on it, I think that lineup is probably the best lineup that we would put out, given form,
Mm.
given the individual players and the quality and the roles they fill. And, I think that's a solid lineup.
I'm really happy for Musa. Really am.
Yeah, same.
It's just been a big boost for him and his confidence. Um, but yeah, I mean, listen, by the way, just with the injury thing real quick, I was so right. Oh, so right on this. It's so funny to me. I love what Fonseca has done, by the way. Um, and mind you, the only players that have really missed time this year are one, a couple of like freak accidents. Florenzi with the torn ACL.
Morata.
Sportiello like slams his hand on a door. And then the others are Loftus Cheek and Calabria missing time when they're walking injuries throughout their career. They are the most and Bennacer. So and Bennacer got hurt on international break. So Fonseca class. Just great job with I think load management with a lot of these players. Speaking of, this is some pretty exciting news, and I say this one is exciting for him returning to training only because he does not look overweight this time. Benacer looks like he's finally slimmed down a bit. I know he went out to the Middle East to kind of do more recuperation. It's huge. I think the absence and of him is always a big deal just because of what he is at his best, but he hasn't been at his best in a while, so it's kind of hard for anybody to, talk about Milan in this like long-term trajectory conversation and think that he's a piece of it because he hasn't shown that he's healthy enough to be on the pitch and so on. So for me, seeing Benacer even remotely fit, like when he came back last time, right? We're like, okay, he does not look like he's in shape, right? Because there's one thing for being healthy enough to be within a squad, and then there's having the conditioning to play again or play in the style that they do. He clearly did not have that last time we saw him. We are hoping that is not the case anymore now. And again, I still maintain in January, if you have money, you still go after another midfielder. You should not be relying on a player who has shown the inability of staying healthy. However, with that said, if Benacer can, right, get back to say 80, 85% of that Scudetto form, it's a huge addition. It's a huge addition. And I'm not expecting this. I'm not going to be sitting here saying, yeah, this is the time Benacer turns it around. He doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, unfortunately, because of his track record as of late in the past couple of years. But I am still willing to give him a chance because of his age. The injury that he's coming off of is just also not the most drastic of injuries that we've seen. For me, getting Benacer back would be a huge boost, not only for morale for the team, but just what we were talking about before with the midfield and minutes. If you can get a somewhat reliable Benacer, and we're not asking for him to be the starter carry like Fofana and Reinders have had, but if he's that third or fourth option and he's healthy and he's in shape, Matt, that's it. I think it's still a boost. The margins on it can vary for sure, but I think this could be a massive, sort of injection for the squad. Again, I maintain this for people who will misinterpret that, even though I have to spell it out for you. I am not saying that this is a guarantee. I'm just saying best case scenario, this would be great. What are your kind of thoughts about him getting back into shape and into the mold, and what you kind of foresee what his role might be?
Sure. So Benacer, he does look more fit, right? And I think there's obviously more to that, right? We've seen countless examples of players that look at the peak of their physical, being, and things when you open up the hood and you see what's injured. Okay, there's glaring injury, records and issues and things like that. And Benacer kind of falls into that category, right? Where it's like he has age on his side. He's not 32, 33 coming back from a torn ACL, right? But these footballers now more than in years past have more minutes, more mileage on them than players that that we know of being great, right? And I think it's been very vocalized amongst European teams across the board, right? The amount of fixtures, the amount of the grueling travel, like year round, the amount of matches being kind of thrown in to the schedule, right? And I think that with Benacer, when you see his recent body of work, right, it is a cause for concern. And there's a reason why Milan were, really exploring opportunities for him to leave this past summer. Now, they obviously couldn't get a deal done, probably for many reasons that we all know. But, the truth of the matter is this: when this player is right, he is an effective midfielder. We've seen what a very strong very solid Bennacer can do within this team. Now it's a different team, right? That's a different conversation to have as well, right? Where we haven't seen him play really much of anything under Fonseca, right? All his accomplishments, the achievements, his good growth, that all came under Stefano Pioli. So it's really a wait and see thing, right? How he would integrate himself back into this team and how Fonseca would tend to utilize him. I don't think Fonseca is going to make any drastic decisions with the tactical shape of this team, but I think you make a good point, right? Where look, if you're able to get a healthy Bennacer where you can kind of plug and play him in for certain matches, you give him maybe 60 minutes, for 50 minutes, and then you pull him off. I think that would give us a big boost. I think health has always been the biggest thing for Bennacer. I think it's never been a matter of the quality. The quality's always been there, but if you can't stay healthy, you can't show that quality. And I think that's kind of been the theme with Bennacer in his recent years at Milan. So, yeah, wishing him the best. Hopefully, he comes back very healthy, stronger than before. The injuries too, right? That can play on you psychologically, right? Is
Absolutely.
showing that drive and desire to push forward, right? And not to pull back when you're like, I'm afraid I'm going to aggravate something.
Correct.
I don't
Yeah.
look like I can kind of make my interventions and my runs and so on and so forth. So hopefully we get him back. And I think, as you just mentioned, it would be a big boost to our midfield, which, is looking thin. Yes, we have two really good informed midfielders right now, but things change throughout the course of a season, and we need that support. And I think Bennacer can provide that if he's healthy.
Yeah. He'll be like a new signing. So
Yeah.
UCL turnaround. And we'll quickly go over this. Red Star, aka the Marco Lasatic Derby. So with this, Milan play 31st into the table. Red Star Belgrade, and I think they're called Crvena Zvezda at this point in time. Whatever you prefer. And Milan 16 in the Champions League. 3 wins, 2 losses to Leverkusen. And Liverpool, again, this fixture and when we were previewing Milan's Champions League campaign was must win. Have to get this one. These sort of matches, there's no excuse to do so. This one is at home at San Siro, so obviously a huge boost for Milan. They have a couple of days of rest for this one. I think this is a little bit better than usual, playing a league game on a Friday and then the turnaround on Tuesday. So, or sorry, this is Wednesday. So this is even a better break than usual for Milan with this. I think this might be their first Wednesday game of this Champions League campaign. Can be wrong. Either way, Milan are in very strong form as of late, as we were mentioning. I think whatever 11 we field here, if relatively healthy, should be good enough for a win. Um, Curious to see the center back rotation with Fonseca. He has changed that up a bit more than most of the positions or the anticipation there. Pavlovic could get a feature. Tamori could get a feature. We really could see this type of juggle. Maybe we see Gabbia again or even Chow in 2 consecutive matches. We know Gabbia coming off of the injury. Chow hasn't really gotten that consistent playing time, but has gotten more minutes overall. For me, I would love to see Tammy Abraham start in this one. Keep Morata rested. I think these are 2 players capable enough of starting in these sort of matches where you don't have to be married to one or the other, where our striker situation was Giroud, and you're like, do we trust Okafor? Do we trust Jovic in these situations? I think the trust between Tammy and Morata is higher that of those other combinations at that striker position. And especially with the way Tammy is playing, this competition is not too elite at all, I would say. They've really been struggling. They've conceded 17 goals. That's got to be up there within the Champions League in terms of amount conceded. I'll go through it. Looking at it, the only other teams that are, beneath them that have conceded more or just as much were Slovan Bratislava and Young Boys, who are sitting 35th and 36th, respectfully. There's a bunch of other teams within these lists that don't come close to it. So they're top 2 in terms of goals conceded. Milan being a dynamic attack, which that is their strength, Matt. I would anticipate attackers plentiful in this one, meaning I think either it could be that trident of Leao, Chukwueze, Pulisic, along with the Tammy Abraham, or maybe even someone else slots in at the number 10. I don't anticipate Musa starting in this one. If he does, it might be in the double pivot because Milan don't have to in order to get the 3 points here like they would which our assumption is for Atalanta, right? Like they need to put their best 11 forward. We both agree with that. Many others agree with it. Yeah, so I see some sort of rotation there. Could see Calabria even start again in this one as well. I wouldn't even guarantee an Emerson Royale start. So yeah, I think that you're going to start to see some of that versatility. And again, too, what we've seen, it's not completely out of the question. Leao could sit as well. So I think there will be some rotation there. What are you kind of anticipating? It's kind of hard to say when we haven't seen the Atalanta match.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on the nature of how this match plays out, right? As far as how grueling it is, which by all accounts, it probably will be one of those matches. And mind you, the conversation could shift and change. If we do pick up an injury, right, or if a player comes up with a slight knock, because we all know there's quick turnarounds to these games. It's like a 3-day turnaround for most of the games that we have coming up, right? I don't know what the number was, but like it was some outrageous number. It was like 10 games in 29 days or something. Like it was something crazy. So yeah, I mean, I think that we might see a little bit of a balanced rotation. I think that Fonseca, as we mentioning, has done a good job with juggling the competition so far. Some of the decisions we haven't agreed with, namely Rafael Leao and not starting him in certain matches, because we know that he started from the beginning. Maybe he can kill this game off, and now you can bring on some other guys, right? So it really depends on how he wants to approach it. But I think that we will see something similar as far as rotation to that of the Sassuolo game, where certain players are locked into their roles. Like Champions League nights, you still need your top players. Like you're not going to go completely, skeleton crew, right? But I think if you look at certain areas, can you afford, Pulisic getting a breather and putting Chukwueze in there, who has played well in the matches he has given the opportunity, right? So I think that that's kind of the way I would feel about this match. I think you might see Tammy, Morata, who did, you mentioned the injuries that we haven't experienced too much this year. Morata was out for a couple weeks, right? So that is one, and I think that Fonseca is being mindful of certain players and certain individuals who, maybe just came back and they're like, hey, let's ease them back in. Let's not, run them out there every single third day. So regardless, I like the way we're heading in the Champions League. I think we picked up some good results. We're in a good position so far. But I think truthfully, the way we saw this, this batch of fixtures, shaping up when we did get the schedule and the draw, right, was okay. The first couple are going to be difficult, but if we can get whatever we can from those, then I think in that second leg of this phase of the tournament, you put yourself in a good position where you can rotate, right? You can start with certain individuals, and if the game calls for it, you could bring on Rafa for 40 minutes and he can do what Rafa does, or you could bench Pulisic and then bring him on for 30 if you need to make an impact. So I think that comes similarly to what we've been saying in a different way in Serie A, right? Like if you get the results that you need, then you have a little bit of leeway. You have a little luxury to say, I don't really need to risk everybody for this match. This isn't a must-win match. Yes, Champions League games are important, but you get the point, right? Where, recent results, the Real Madrid one, some of these other instances have given us that opportunity, and Fonseca the opportunity to say, hey, like let me spare this player. He's played a ton. Fofana, like you played a ton. Like let's give you the breather, and you could put someone else out there. And I think the one last thing too I want to mention that Fonseca has done that I have liked is he's picked the right moments to give players like cameos and auditions versus certain, like Pioli in the past would pick a match where it's like, okay, you're putting CDK out there, but you're putting him in the Coppa Italia with a whole rotated squad. So he's not even playing with the best guys. That's where I think Fonseca has differed. In my opinion, I think Fonseca's towed that line between like, all right, well, I'm not going to put the guy that's struggling and I'm going to give him this opportunity, and then he's playing with my B team. Like that's where I have sided with Fonseca. So I'm excited for the Champions League fixture for sure. Especially around this time of year, right? You want to see your team in a good position to advance, and so far Milan are right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Milan really have an opportunity to continue this good form. Again, undefeated in 7 matches in a row, but it really is probably
feel that way. It doesn't feel that way.
It's probably because everybody likes to dislike this club. right now from the fan base perspective. I understand being frustrated with certain things, but again, we appreciate all you guys. And look at that, another relatively quick episode. We will try and see if we will do a post-match review after tomorrow's match against Atalanta. Likely to have on a guest soon for the next podcast episode. Again, we appreciate all of your support. Be sure to go and support a bunch of other great content creators that the Milan Weekly podcast, Coast to Coast with Fabio and Gio. Again, MLM podcast, the Calcio guys as well. They just had their 250th episode. They're great guys. Shout out to them. Max and Gino, as I mentioned, with MLM, Old Hard Rossonero, who jumped in, Sempre Milan podcast. Again, Lorenzo and Steph are doing stuff with Sempre Milan as well. Again, maybe drawing a blank or two here because I just always mention all these like channels and people. Milan Lab does a good job of airing the Milan Futuro matches if you're interested in those, and some of the Primaveras. So if you're interested in sort of that stuff, go and check out Milan Lab. Again, guys, just here to support all the good people who, align with what Matt was saying earlier. We're pro Milan. We're not here for an agenda to try and look right or care more about being right than we are about our team winning. We care about our team picking up 3 points every week and trying to get number 20, number 8, and finally a Coppa Italia for the first time in 20-something years. That's what we care about. We don't give a shit about the other stuff. So you heard it from the horse's mouth, right? Other stuff that you can do, go and follow Matt and Matt_Santangelo, and then at AC Milan Bros. Twitter is very odd with updating followers. It says I've been stuck at like 13,000 for quite some time now, but I go to my stats and like it says I should be over 15K. So I have no idea. So congratulations preemptively to your follower account on there. I'm sure you guys already surpassed it. Again, you can go and follow me at Martino_Puccio there. Again, Apple, Spotify, everywhere else you get your audio podcast at That Milan Pod, and on Twitter at That Milan Pod, TikTok, and then as well as Instagram. By the way, 125th anniversary kit. If we just want to get to that real quick, if you want to just bring it up, are you copping? Did you buy any of these? Did you buy the goalkeeper kit? Did you buy the traditional red and black?
So I didn't buy any of them yet, which I've kind of dropped the ball there. I do plan on getting the I wasn't able to cop like the more expensive, like heavier weighted, like thicker jersey. My brother was. So real quick, just some background on this. My brother sent me a text. I was like, because I've been sick, right? In the middle of the night, I heard like the alert. And I was like, I'm not answering that. It's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm not answering this. I don't know what's going on. And then I woke up and I saw a text from my brother. It was like 3:30. And I'm like, why is this guy up? And he's like, yeah, I couldn't sleep. But then I saw that, like 20 minutes after it was posted, Milan put out like the promos and all the videos and all that stuff surrounding the 125th anniversary shirt, which you guys can see on the screen. And it was sold out pretty quickly on the US site. I think they made only 1,899 of them to signify, obviously, the year we were founded.
Mm-hmm.
And then he immediately rushed over to the Italy site and managed to get one. He just wanted any size because it was more like a keepsake jersey.
Sure.
Because assuming it's going to come in like a box and all that stuff. Milan and Puma have done a tremendous job with like presentation of these fourth kits / like special kits.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't gotten any of them yet, but I do think I'm probably going to wind up getting the home. And I love the black goalkeeper shirt, as you mentioned. It's like nice, super clean. And it's something that, look, I love the red and black jersey that we have. I love the colors of this club, but sometimes it can be difficult to like pair them and wear them with certain things. Whereas if you have a clean black jersey that gives you like a little bit of taste of AC Milan and it's got a little flair and it's comfortable and it's long sleeve, like I can rock that with a jacket.
I was saying in the TikTok video, and the social media video, that this is also just something that you could wear any day.
I could wear that to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
I know the badge itself, it's like whatever. It's still I see some of it. I'm not buying, just to make it clear. If I were, I would go for the goalkeeper kit. I think this is plenty nice if this is your sort of taste. I get it. For me, it's not 100% my cup of tea. It's grown on me as I've seen more pictures of it and how it's been styled. I think it looks nice. But again, to me, this isn't like something I would purchase. Like this right here, this is like in my wheelhouse. I love how this looks and feels. Um, for this kit, I think it's nice, and I totally understand where a lot of fans are coming from. I believe they already had sold out certain sizes. So again, yeah, go ahead and check that out. And they're still selling panettone on the site as well. So if you're, if you're interested in that, I'm not a big fan of the or of either of those desserts. So again, we appreciate you guys so much. Subscribe and follow that Milan podcast. And hopefully it comes with 3 points tomorrow in Bergamo.
Absolutely, guys. And real quick, one final thing.
Go
We're
for it.
getting into that silly season of the calendar year, or AC Milan's calendar year, where transfers are going to come up, transfer news is going to come up. We talked about with Ali the quotes from Ibrahimovic regarding like the market and how it was taken in a jokingly manner. But I think by all accounts, I do still think that Milan are going to be relatively active and be opportunistic, not so desperate on the market, because again, we haven't had, thankfully, many injuries that have been detrimental to the team. But anything that does come in the next couple weeks, regarding links to a player, whether it's a strong link or a loose link, we will also try to give you guys some perspective on that. Obviously, we try to focus more on the the fixtures and the results and things like that. But I know you guys still love that transfer market content. So we'll try to figure out ways to finagle that into our content, because we know you guys enjoy that, and we are here to record and put out content for you guys. So just wanted to add that in there. And again, always thank you guys for the support. Thank you for liking, subscribing, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. The numbers have been going up. We see the regulars in the comments. We see the Spotify's Unwrapped coming out there from certain individuals.
Yes,
So
yes.
we do really appreciate the
Well, we'll
support.
give a shout out to those people who have tagged us in
Yeah,
there.
we
I think that's only
truly do
decent.
appreciate all the support. And as Martina always mentions, there are a lot of great Milan content creators, not just in the podcast space, but also in TikToks and Twitter and and the fact that you guys choose to invest your time and to support us when you have many other options to choose from is really, really appreciated. So thank you.
Yes, and it's our 1 year anniversary on Twitter, which is just a notification that we just got. Um, Again, shout out to Ahmed for posting that, Marco Villela as well. Marco's great. He's dude, always checking up down under in Australia, as well as Adriano. We know we have a bunch of listeners out there, so shout out to all you guys everywhere else around. Again, it's just great to see. It's like Milan Weekly, us Sempre Milan, MLM as well. Just so many great people and podcasts. And again, this is why I like conversing with these types of people that understand full contextual conversations being had. So again, good people. We appreciate your support so much, and we'll see you next time.